you just don't see an MS200T quite this clean. Now I did degrease it a little bit. You know, even the plastic's not stained too terribly bad. My goodness, the spark arrestor's still in it. And this hasn't been used in quite some time because this has got that style bumper chain. Brand new, I don't think that chain would cut butter. I also have one that has not been degreased, but it's in a similar kind of mint condition. Just got some shop goop on it. And so one of my customers bought these two and a Husky, which I'll show you in a second, and said, here, go through them, service them, and do a little light performance work. So that's what we're going to do today. This hasn't been degreased either, but we can take a look here. This is a 2012, so this is a very early X-Torque. The way you can tell if it's an X-Torque or not, just at a casual glance, is you got this removable side cover right here for your transfers. On the earlier version, the original 372, that's just a casting right there, not a removable plate. And there are some things that are different in between the X-Torque and the original version. I believe they both take a different brake handle, and this top handle, this wrap handle here, is taller to get a little bit more clearance. I think the Strato cylinder is a little taller. Still runs the same air filter and same tank and all that other happy stuff. But, you know, these were commercially used, but evidently very lightly commercially used. Okay, real quick, I'm going to insert a little clip here of what's to come. I got too much going on in this video, so I don't want to make it any longer than it is. But this should make your eyes pop out. Just here at the dealership picking up some parts, and I thought, hey, let's see if they've taken any price increases yet. So 400's now $11.49. The 500 is $17.50. Oh my goodness. And the 661 is $17.39. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, I'm just starting the initial tear down after I clean this up. It cleaned up really nice. It's probably gonna need another go around, but just a couple of things, like all the screws are still original. You know, the spark arrestor is still in here. If you're not familiar with these saws, you just don't find examples like this anymore that are completely unmolested and original and well taken care of and lightly used. I'll take you in here. You know, this is a wear item for sure on these. You know, you get oil contamination from the oil cap and, you know, just heat and elements, and these are sure to break. One other thing with this version of carburetor, that foil cover right there is for the accelerator pump, and it is not if but when that will fail and create terrible idle issues for this carburetor. So I'm going to pop that out, JB weld this full, and just bypass that circuit. It doesn't take away from performance or anything, but drastically increases the reliability of this carburetor. Fuel line's still in decent shape. It's a little firm, but not too terribly bad. And just like anything else, well taken care of. Let me see if I can't get you in here. That's hard. Let's see if I can get just enough light in there. Piston looks fantastic. No issues. The only thing I've seen missing is, you know, there's usually a little metal gasket that seals up the exhaust port right there. I'm probably got a spare one laying around. Okay, quick look at the carburetor. Pump diaphragm doesn't look too terribly bad, but there's definitely some memory in that. And that doesn't look horrible, but it's pretty stiff. So obviously we're getting the carb kit, and here's what's behind. There's your accelerator pump circuit. You know, I just took a pick, punched it in there, and then pried it out. And I got some JB Quick right here, so this shouldn't take long at all. One last thing when you do this, you know, just like any other thing, just a little dab will do you. Make sure it's clean before you apply the epoxy. and you know, no excess or whatever. And you have to do this with the cover off, because you'll have, as the epoxy heats up, you'll end up having bubbles or you won't get a good seal. So just make sure that this is all open and well ventilated until that epoxy cures. Okay, so part of the now you got to know somebody to get this. The Southeastern Steel rep for me gave me some assistance getting the software loaded for the parts lookup, and there's plenty of other cool things. So as long as it's been registered, so this was a 2004, so she's 11 years old, excuse me, 21 years old, and in this kind of shape. I know I'm just beating a dead horse saying how nice this thing is, but it's just unheard of. Okay, quick glance at this 020. Now, some of the O series saws were identical, and there was just a badging change. You know, they had a round, you know, MS, and, you know, they're just very slight things that changed. Sometimes none at all mechanically. This is it's a much earlier serialized unit. So this one starts off at 144, and I looked it up, and either this wasn't registered or they're just not holding on to records that old. I've had very little success finding out when a saw was actually made with a really old serial number like that. But 144 should put this in the neighborhood of like 93, 94, if I had to guess, 95. This does have a different cylinder design, and this also has a different side cover for carburetor adjustment. And the other reason that tells you this is a very early unit is that this is a Walbro carburetor that's on here. It is also a fixed high jet. Obviously takes a different kit, and these are actually pretty good carburetors, even though it's a fixed jet carburetor. I know that sounds crazy. Most fixed jet carburetors don't do well. These are actually pretty decent. They did make a twin screw Walbro version of this, but anyway, so we'll only be able to do some modest performance upgrades on this, just a timing advance and a muffler mod, and that carburetor should be able to handle it, no problem. Just going to give the rest of it a once over. Most of the rubber bits actually feel like they may have been replaced at some point in time, because there's no way that that has got any rubber feel left to it if it was original. But again, saw's in incredibly good condition. Not as good as the other one, but still really, really good. She's going to need another bath. I've still got some pine pitch that didn't come off in the first degreasing, so we'll just once we get this up and running, she'll get another bath. All right, so the Cherry 200 and the Cherry 020 are both done. So I haven't posted much lately. I've been busy. There's always something to do. But with that being said, I figured it'd be a good time to document this peach. So one of my customers, Derek, showed up, and he, you know, Humpy Dumpty took a big fall. And, you know, this one's, you know, Derek takes pretty good care of his equipment. It's not too bad. It's got degreaser on it, so it might look a little worse. But then there's this gem that's been rolling around in somebody's toolbox with a ton of oil all over it. And I looked at Derek and I was like, man, you do realize that, you know, cleaning is the same price as repair work. He was like, well, it's not mine, I don't care. Just fix it. I said, okay. And the last one of the three, this is the same customer as the 020 and the 200. I got the machine work done to the cylinder, do some port work, and get this back together today for him. You know, saw's in phenomenal shape, you know, compared to some of the other stuff that shows up here. By no means it's a brand new saw, but nice survivor. That was a, if I'm not mistaken, it was like a 2012. Yeah, it's 2012. So for a pro saw, that's in immaculate condition. Okay, port work on the 372 is complete. A little upper work, a little bit of intake work, a little bit of exhaust work. Relieve the shoulders right here, so we still got good clearance. I've got the cylinder base cleaned up. I still have to do a timing advance, but I want to get the cylinder on there so I can avoid getting any dirt and debris in there. Always got to be careful not to get anything in there. Just a modest muffler mod. That's probably about double the size it used to be. No secondary port on this one. Doesn't want it crazy loud. And let me get all this bolted back up. All right, I'm gonna go run over to the wood lot, and we're just gonna run all three of these, do a little torture testing, make sure that they're ready to turn back over to the owner. And so I put on an 8-pin rim sprocket, which will give me some more chain speed. You know, we're just running a 20-inch bar on a 70cc saw. And what I noticed was that this thing's in more dire need than dressing. I don't know if you can see that, but I mean, there's jumbo burrs right there, and there's a huge groove that's worn in here. So I think the other side's worse, or no, this side's not as bad. But we'll actually run, yeah, you can see the sheen right there on how far that's raised. Anyway, so let's see how this bar runs heavily worn like that versus a new one. You know, I always really try and preach, make your bars last longer, and for your cutting enjoyment, to use something like this by preferred, and dress your bars and get them back nice and level. So let's see if it cuts any different with, because I won't have time to, you know, dress the bar and be like, okay, here, before and after. I'm just gonna try and make a quick trip to the wood lot. I know I've covered this multiple times, but if you'll use just a little bit of Sharpie, it'll definitely help when you, especially if you got some bad wear, you don't really know. I mean, you can do it by eye, but the blue dye definitely helps. Let me grab my tool here. So when you start going, oops, here, hold still. You'll see just naturally so you can see, I don't know, it's hard to get this angle with the light shining on it. Change the angle just a little bit, but you can see that the file is only touching one rail. So that means your chain, yeah, let me back out just a little bit. That just means your chain's gonna be riding a little kilted. So you just need to keep going until you get all the dye off the rails. You know, and these are like 35 bucks and well worth it. You can do this with a flat file, but the idea is to get it, you know, with that perfect 90-degree angle. So the chain is up and level. So when it goes into the cut, it's not canted off to one side and your top plate's not making full contact with the kerf. I got a 200. Not bad. Let's try the 020. Right, here's the 020. This is a precursor to the 200. Got a different cylinder design. This actually has a fixed jet high, and it's actually doing pretty good. So the only adjustment you have is your idle speed and your low circuit. bad. That actually pulls a little harder, I think. 372 extra torque. Make a small tuning adjustment, see if we can improve that. Even it out just a little bit. That's a little bit better. Okay, so I strapped this new bar on, and what I can tell you, the bar that needed to be dressed, and I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts. That bar is hot as a firecracker. So let's try a new bar, and the old bar properly dressed will run just as good as this new bar. So don't get all simpleton on me, all right? Whether that cut any better, I could definitely tell that it was smoother, and there was actually, even with earplugs in and as loud as the saw is with the muffler mod, it was actually quieter. I didn't hear the chain and the bar, and that's warm to the touch, even though it's only a couple of cuts. But you know, it's hotter than dog balls in a wool sock right here. All right, well, that was a long enough video for one day. Thanks so much for staying to the end. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all that happy stuff, and I'll be back making regular content again before you know it. Thanks again, y'all. Bye.